This is a Broncolor 1200 watt second strobe. Well, it's not a Broncolor, it's actually a Visatec. And Visatec is an older brand that was made by Bron. I think they started making these 30 years ago. This one is maybe close to 20 years old. I really don't know. Um, and from what I can tell, when Broncolor um, introduced this line, they, I think, were aiming it towards a different market, a lower end market than their existing Broncolor line services. So if you've ever used Broncolor or read about them, they're known for really very expensive packs and heads and super expensive modifiers and very unique type of modifiers. They're made in Switzerland. The company is been in business since the late 50s, and the company's pretty small, maybe 50 employees from what I read on the website. So, for whatever reason, they decided to make a different line, a different model, a lower price point, and this is the result of that. So, it's still, I would not call it entry level. This thing is easily the best built strobe I've ever experienced. And the downside to that is it weighs about 10 pounds. But it's overbuilt. And it even though it's as old as it is, um, it is still working quite well. So it's very simplistic. It has a four-stop range. The stops are very accurate. I measured it with a light meter. So if I go from 1/1 to 1/2, it's going to drop about a stop. There's a test button. Below that, there's a little LED that will show you when it recharges. It recharges fairly quickly. The sync port it takes a mini plug, so mini plugs are pretty easy to find. Um, and the slave they refer to it as a cell here. Um, let's see if I can find that. It's at the back, it's in the center, it's that sort of clear disc, and it's fairly sensitive. I've only used it indoors. I don't really know how sensitive sometimes these things aren't that sensitive outside in ambient light. Um, and this one came with a reflector. So the way you would, one of the modifiers that's easy to use on this is an umbrella, and the way you would install the umbrella is actually on the bottom. So it's between the kind of that foam green holder where that attaches to the white strobe. You could sort of see those two little boxes there. And here's a different view where you kind of just put it in that little box that's on the upper right of the holder. There's no clamp to clamp it in. It's based off friction. And, because the umbrella shaft is not in the center of the light bulb, I mean, that would be pretty hard to do. The umbrella is not, and they never on no strobes would the umbrella be perfectly centered to the light bulb. But what I've heard or what I read is that the reflector that they put on these is slanted, and the slant is to take advantage of the difference of the shaft to the center of the light, and supposedly it distributes the light more evenly with inside the umbrella. So even though this is considered to be kind of more at the entry level for Bron or Broncolor, there still is some design thought that has gone into this. Um, and from what I've also read and heard, in Switzerland, um, there are some pretty high standards with regards to electrical equipment. So I'm guessing that the the electronics that are inside of this strobe have been built as robustly as, let's say, the outside and the rest of the physical stuff that you can see on the strobe appears to be. So these are not that expensive if you can find one. I think people are a little turned off by the size and by the weight and by the fact that it doesn't have a battery. But it works great for bare bulb, which is a popular type of strobe photography right now. It works great with an umbrella. It works great bouncing it off of a bounce board or off of a wall. It's got a lot of power, 1200 watt seconds, that you can take all the way down to 75 watt seconds. It has an easy sync. It has a pretty good cell or slave that's responsive, and they're very, very inexpensive. So it'd be great, like all of these older strobes that I'm looking at and use, it would be a great addition if you needed an extra light. Uh, to the equipment that you're currently using. You're going to want a nice light stand or AC stand. I have these things called Matthews Beefy Baby light stands. They support about 22 pounds. I would be looking at light stands that could support a fair amount of weight because this thing weighs 10 pounds. Probably also put a sandbag on it if I was in an environment where I was worried about it tipping over. Yeah, these are nice. I never thought I would be using anything closely related to Broncolor because they don't make a lot of them, and the ones that they did make were really expensive. So it's kind of cool that there's this alternative, and the alternative, the Visatec line, it works really, really well. It's a very good value.